big organizations are concerned, so it's not a big issue for them. They have sufficient funds. They have a very well educated team, qualified team of the professional, which is highly engaged in the market survey activities, pilot testing of the target customers. Okay, so after taking the feedback by these experts, then they are going to invest a lot of amount on the R&D of that product. So there is very less risk of the failure of the new product in case of the large organizations. But when it comes to the budding entrepreneurs who have just an idea of the new product or any services, but they don't have the sufficient resources to validate it from the market, so it's a big challenge for them. So this expert talk by Amit Bansal ji is going to be very beneficial for all the budding entrepreneurs. So I will request all the participants to listen to him very seriously, and I am quite sure that at the end of day you will be immensely benefited by his expert delivery. So Bansal sir,
Yeah.
so last but not the least, I again very thankful to you for sparing your valuable time for our students, for our budding entrepreneurs. So over to you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
sir.
Dr. Hemant.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
And I feel proud to be part of be part of your team as a researcher during my tenure in this MIT University. And see, I know a bit about marketing, a bit about technical things because I'm a techno-commercial fellow. So I'll first of all, I thank City University for providing me this opportunity, and especially Dr. Hemant. And we'll take forward this topic as a informal discussion. I have my slides. I'll share my slide deck also. I would like to request each and everybody, if you have any question, you just stop me anywhere. And you can ask your questions.
Yeah, actually, Dr. Bansal, at the end of your session, we will have, a question answer round. So in that, they will be,
Okay.
They will be putting their queries.
Also,
Yes.
to add on, I would request all the participants to kindly write your questions, whatever you want to ask from our speaker in the chat box. Towards the end, we'll have a Q&A round, and I believe all your questions will be answered therein.
Is my slide visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah,
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Amit ji, just I'm sorry to interrupt you. Dr. Saurabh.
Yes, sir, please.
Yes, I have a special request to you. You please note down all the important points, sir, and at the end, you will be giving the words of thanks to our honorable guest, sir. You are the right person, sir.
Sure,
right?
sir.
So,
sure, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Yeah, please, Bansal, sir, please carry on, sir.
Thank you so much. And like it's Saturday morning and probably difficult for some of the people to attend this session. And like I'll take this discussion forward. Our topic is market validation, as correctly explained by Dr. Hemant. That market validation, whenever we get into the market, we need to validate that market, whether our product will be accepted. So market validation is having a definition that it's a process to determine whether there is a need of that product in the market. And there is a tagline in my presentation that launching a product is the most expensive market validation you can do. And as Dr. Hemant said, big organizations are having like a lot of muscle strength, a lot of marketing team, a lot of research team, a lot of portfolio team. So they do a lot of research on each and every product. But I contradict Dr. Hemant on one point that maybe it's not a contradiction, but I contradict in one point that big companies doesn't have failures in these kind of market validations. They do a lot of market validation, but still there are a lot of failures. I'll give you a recent example, which is a live example. We also faced, and a lot of pharmaceutical companies faced it. I'm sorry if my discussion is more toward pharmaceutical, because I'm connected in pharmaceutical company. So one of the example recent is you might have heard that there is a product called Molnupiravir, which is recently launched by approximately 15 Indian pharmaceutical companies, and that is related for the treatment of COVID-19, correct? And a lot of companies have invested a lot of money in that, in licensing that product from the innovator, paid a lot of money to the innovator to get it into the Indian market, and they launched it. And they launched it with a bang that it will work same as Favipiravir, which was launched in the second wave of COVID-19. And it was a most successful product, although that product doesn't have much effects. But still, that was that like a company like Mankind, they gained approximately 400 CR from that product as the revenues. So that was a very successful product. Looking at that success, we tried to launch Molnupiravir also this time. But looks like market validation, market research, proper epidemiology, and the disease condition was not studied properly by most of the pharmaceutical companies, and it failed drastically. Correct? People didn't even touch 10 CR for that product. So that is how market validation is very important. And I would request all the startups or budding entrepreneurs that market validation is to be done thoroughly before entering any market, even though there are failures, but market validation negates the risk to an extent that you won't nosedive and you won't be out of the market forever. That's my take from market validation part. So what is market validation, and is this going to work? Like the question is this going to work? So you have an idea or you have a product. What market validation does is you need to check whether this product or idea, is it going to work? So it's a process of determining the need of the product in the target market. As I said, it removes the uncertainties and it tests new business ideas, products, or even the services, whatever you have. There are different stages of market validation. And see, before that, we understand the marketing process. Everything is a demand and supply, correct? For a business, there should be a demand. And if you supply that, you gain profit or you make a business out of it. So sometimes demand is like it's inherent. Like some people need something and they keep on needing that. That creates a demand. Like food is a demand, correct? And it is required to everybody. So it is inherent. But some things which you don't even need, the demands are being generated. I'll give you a few examples for that, like phones with the cameras. There were several phones which were coming with the cameras, correct? A single camera with a 2 megapixel, 3 megapixel, 4 megapixel camera. But now, if you see, there are hundreds of phones with 4 different cameras, with 50 megapixel, 100 megapixel, 60 megapixel. Nobody needed it. The demand was created. There is no demand for that. If you ask any common person, they don't need 4 cameras in a phone. And 95% of the population, if you see the research on mobile phones, 95% of the people don't need those high-end cameras in the mobile phone, correct? And this demand is just created and people supplied it in a cost-effective manner. So people have adopted it. Now there is a situation that nobody buy cameras because there were a lot of camera companies which, see, people buy cameras. I'm not saying that people don't buy cameras, but general public doesn't buy cameras. They use phone for clicking pictures and all those stuffs. So the companies like Canon or Samsung or the Nikon, they are a lot more affected. Although professional cameras or digital cameras are there in the market, but still the need of the cameras are getting reduced because phones are there, and this demand was created by the phone suppliers. That's one of the example. And if you supply those at the cost-effective manner, then you create a demand and the supply is already there. Third part is pricing. Pricing is very important. If you place any product with a pricing part, good price in the market. Whatever, if you have a product which is a bit inferior also, if your pricing is good, you are there in the market. And the fourth part, most important part is value proposition. What is value proposition? We'll come in, we'll go stage by stage in a detailed manner. Value proposition is like if some phone or any product is of like some pricing, whether your pricing is justifying that or your product is justifying that pricing in a reverse manner. So that is value proposition. What differentiation you have, what is the edge over the existing market products or market therapies or anything. So we'll go stage by stage. First one is validation of market opportunity. If you have an idea, first you identify a product or idea which you want to work on. Then you validate that idea or validate that market opportunity. The second stage is you select the target market, because there are a lot of markets. So for a generic company or a pharmaceutical company, there are a lot of markets, and US is the most lucrative market. Everybody knows it, because there you get a lot of pricing and a lot of competition is there, but pricing is very good. So you have to select a target market. Then you have to do a detailed analysis of market segment. Which market segment you want to try? Because if you ask about pharmaceutical, there are 3-4 types of market segments, like generic, OTC, branded, generic. There are a lot of market segments in India as well. So you have to select market segment. This is all based on like the type of product you are going to launch. But there are different market segments as well. Like you want to go for a rural market, rural, urban, or urban, and the elite segment of the market. So that's the different market segments. And the fourth stage is defining the customer value propositions. When you have a product in hand, you know the market requirement, you know the target market, you know the market segment also. Then you go for a value proposition definition. So you define your product's value proposition, because that is the key wherein you generally say the tagline of a company, that's a value proposition, or a tagline of a product, that's a value proposition, correct? So if you ask me, our tagline is serving life, or and our SOP is affordable medicines to all, correct? So these kind of value propositions, we give it to each and every product. What's your tagline becomes your value proposition for each and every product. Then the stage 5 is validation and sales, validation of sales and marketing plan. You make a plan like what will be your pricing, what will be your sales process, sales channel, and then you start selling the product, correct? This is your sales and marketing plan. And then post putting the product in the market, you test that for sustaining that sales and increasing that sales to a certain level, which is your target. So we define it in top line, and you have a bottom line already defined in terms of bottom line defined with certain margins. Depending on company to company, different margins are set, correct? So we'll go one by one. Stop me if anybody is having any issues, correct? First one is validation of market. Validation of market opportunity is done once you have a product or idea in hand. What you do is you do a lot of market research, and first you identify the customer requirements. Then you validate those customer requirement, what is the unmet need, what is the customer requirement, how they perceive that as a requirement, and whatever the options which are there as an alternative to your product, correct? So that is customer validation. Then measurement of market readiness. See, no, like you have to check whether your market is ready for that, accepting that product or not. Suppose like this I talked about an example of like cameras with like a phone with 4 cameras. Whether your market is ready to accept that, people do a lot of research in that and then get into the market. So first you have to check whether market is accepting your product. What is the change from the current solution? But what change you are going to bring from current with this current solution, and whether you are the early entry and whether your customer or the target market is an early adopter or not. Then you do a lot of competitive analysis. We call it as we create a lot of competitive landscape. I have an example of this kind of analysis done, a live example, which we do for our product that I'll show you at the end. Probably that everything you will relate at that point of time. So we do a lot of competitive analysis. How many players are there with same kind of product or a product which is inferior to you, but you have an edge over that. So you do all the analysis, whatever is existing, whatever is going to come in future, whatever is there in the pipeline, and what researches are going on with respect to that particular idea or the product. So that defines your competitors. And then finally, what you do is cost-effective distribution, how you are going to distribute that product. Is it through wholesalers, distributors? Is it through direct marketing, D2C? There are a lot of platforms today nowadays, D2C, distributors, and through B2B. There are a lot of ways and channels. So you have to define that cost-effective distribution of that product as well. And what is the tools to validate that your market opportunity is market research. And what market research? There are 2 types of market research, primary and secondary. Primary is through questionnaires, interviews, and you go to different KOLs, key opinion leaders, we say in pharma sector. So you go to them, you create, do some interviews, you get their feedbacks, you send them questionnaires, you get their feedbacks, and do all those data analysis. And the sample size should be adequate enough to get a feel of the market. There are a lot of secondary market research as well, like through social medias, Twitters, Facebook, because these social medias, they keep on providing their feedbacks on different products and the unmet market needs also. If you go through different blogs, social medias, they keep posing problems, correct? There are 5% of people who give positive vibes, but there are 95% people who says, this is not right, this is not right, this is not right, this is not going to be right, and this product is bad because of this, and because of that, correct? So you get a lot of data from these kind of social media. You collate all that data based on sample size and your market, target market. Collect the data, do some analysis, and you'll get a lot of feedback on market opportunity, what exists in the market. The second step is to find the target market. First, you have to identify which market you want to get into. And you should not target multiple markets, because targeting multiple markets makes little sense. Start with one, narrow down it to one, and then think about how to position your product there in that market. So there are different ways to do it. What product you have? Suppose you have a speaker, correct? Which population you are going to target, and this population is in which geographical location, and what is your customer profile? What should be your customer profile? You have to prepare in pharma, what we do is we prepare a TPP, like target product profile, what your product should look like. And that's a paper, nothing else. What specification it should have, what qualities it should have, whether it should be stable, to what extent, and what is your Cmax, Tmax, like what's the pharmacological profile? That's a pharmaceutical term. But when we talk about the speakers, what should be the sound quality, surround sound, removal of surround sound, looks beautiful, correct? So these kind of things you have to evaluate and then make a customer profile, your target product profile also. Based on geographical location, what is most accessible to you, whether you want to target the rural market, rural, urban, young generation, the old generation. So these kind of things you have to think first, and basis that you have to identify your target market. Then there are some inward factors which you need, like company's capability also. Like suppose if me if we talk about mankind, there are a lot of muscle strength in India. So our first target will always be Indian market. Then we have a presence in another 20 countries around the world. So what we will try and do is we'll target those markets first. So that's our target market. But if we talk about a company like Dr. Reddy's, if we talk about the companies like Aurobindo and Sun, they have more of a presence in US. So their target market first would be US, because they can market their product there well, and they can capture the market quite extensively. So it depends on company capability, market environment. So if I'm targeting the generic product is any product in pharmaceutical. I'll give you a brief background. Generic product is any product which is sold without brand name, correct? So that's the generic product. So you have to study the market environment. US is more of a generic friendly market, whereas India is all branded market. 90% is branded, only 10% is generic market. So if you want to sell a generic product, it's better go to US. If you want to sell a branded product, India is the easier market for you. And third one is ROI, which is return on investment. It depends. Like if from a generic company point of view, US gives more of a ROI. So if you invest 10 rupees in US, you can get 1,000 rupees there. But when you invest 10 rupees in India, you'll get 15, 20, or maybe 30 also. So it all depends on company policy and what ROI you want. So that also is an important factor to define the target market. There is a methodology, building a question set, cold calling. Sorry, you can have a cold calling with the different companies, KOLs, and seek the advice, like whether this new product will, how it will fit in the market. You do a lot of market surveys, interact with a lot of target customers, directly with the customers. You send some questionnaires, you put some Google forms on the internet, do some surveys, send emails to the wide list, because there are a lot of agencies which gives you the target market emails also. Like these are your target market emails. You send the emails, you get a lot of feedback from those audiences, and basis that data, you can define that what should be your target market. Market segment analysis. I said that market is one thing and market segment is another thing. It's a part of market which you want to target. So from pharmaceutical terms, it will be generic, OTC, branded, and other things. From geographical front, like it can be US specific hospital business. You want to go for OTC, want to go for compounding, you want to go for pharmacy business. So these are different markets. And in terms of different, I would say, like in phones, if you want to talk about, iPhone is a market segment, which is an elite segment. Then you go to some like OnePlus, which is a semi-elite segment. And then you go to another Mi, which is a normal segment, which is for general public. And then you go to another Realme and other phones. That's a rural, suburban level segment. So this defines the market segment, correct? Then first you identify which your product fits into which market segment, whether it goes to generic, OTC, or anywhere. Like Crocin is generic product, OTC product, correct? You might have heard one recent news that Dolo 650, everybody knows Dolo 650 nowadays because of COVID. That's a brand by Micro Labs. Although Crocin is the biggest brand from Innovator, but Dolo 650 was the most like I would say identified brand nowadays because of this. So how this Dolo came into picture? This Dolo was basically rural or rural urban brand developed by Micro. And what happened during the COVID segment, because most of the people were using this WhatsApp and Facebooks. So once the prescription was generated through some of the rural suburban area, it was posted on this WhatsApp. There are a lot of research which is being done on this brand, how it became a 650 crore brand in last 2 years, although it was 100 crore brand earlier. Correct. So what happened once few prescriptions were uploaded on the WhatsApp or Facebook, and what happened that prescription was circulated on WhatsApp like anything, and that become a brand somewhere. And this company generated a revenue of 650 crores last year, correct? With this brand, and there was a lot of news that pills equivalent to the height of Eiffel Tower was sold in of this brand, correct? So that's the market segment area which you need to define where you want to get into. If it would have been the elite area, that would not have gone to the WhatsApp or anything. It would have been there on the prescription itself. But now this has become a brand. So what is the, now you have to assess how much of the total market you want to get into. We define it as a market share. Then how to develop a value proposition. So if you place your product with a certain pricing, you have to define your value proposition that with 5 rupees, I'm giving these all features. Mobile phones, people do define value proposition that OnePlus is having all the features of Apple, except the privacy or security or anything. All the features are there, but it comes in 30,000 rupees or 40,000 rupees. But Apple is a brand that is having an additional feature which says if you have an Apple, your everything is secured. Apple's value proposition is security and a brand. So that's a value proposition. Then identify requirement of sales and marketing, that you have to identify what way you want to market or get into the sales of that product. That's a methodology for like checking your market segment. Interviews with qualified personnel, and get feedbacks, understand the market needs, and then get into the market segment. There is one concept which is called as shadow branding. It's a good concept, and people adopt it. You might have seen the ad of Brezza. When the Brezza was launched, a lot of ad was coming on TV and TV and media, that they were just showing a red colored car, and they just were showing that a car with a lot of noise, correct? And they say it has a beast, correct? So when and they didn't even mention the name of the car, the brand, who is going to sell, and they didn't even show a picture of that. And it went on for approximately a month on the media. They spent a lot of money on that, and suddenly one day it came that it is Maruti Brezza. So that is called as shadow branding. What happens when you show these kind of things on like media, on websites, on anything? We create an aura around a product, that this product will be like this, and these all are features. People start developing pictures in their mind. We call it as shadow, and they keep on visiting that kind of websites or media, correct? And that gives you a lot of information that people are having interest in that brand or the product or whatever idea you have. So this creates a lot of confidence in yourself that it's going to work or not going to work. So if people are visiting your website, people are seeing your advertisements, people are looking at your different media platforms or blogs, then you come to know that this is going to be a hit or a flop. That's called shadow branding. Now is customer value proposition. I'm talking about this since long. Value proposition as a definition is the expected gain that a customer would receive by using your product. As I said, that Apple is having a value proposition that your data will be 100% secure, and they give a guarantee to that. Correct. Although there are lapses in that as well, but still, that's much better than any of other phones existing in the market. I'm not advertising any other or Apple brand as such, but still, that's my experience. And value proposition is required for any company or any product that gives an effective message, and that message should have the identified problem and the problem-solving statement as well. Correct? Then you can do a customer value proposition through alpha testing or beta testing. Like alpha testing is the internal employees. You give your products to internal employees or your internal stakeholders. Let them use it. Let them validate that idea. If there are any issues, any negative feedbacks or anything which comes from your internal sources, you fix that and then go for a beta testing. That is towards like the limited number of users which you want to go for, and you sell it to them or distribute it to them for the external users. Let them use it, note their feedbacks, and if there is any problem, fix it and get into the market with a bang. Like if you know, Reliance has launched their first mobile phone a long back. They distributed their mobile phones free of cost. Correct? They distributed it to a large number of people. That was a massive launch. Correct? All mobile phones were free. Everybody was getting it. 500 rupees, get a mobile and use it. Later, people realized that they are stuck with Reliance. They are paying a lot of money in subscriptions. Correct? Or paying their like I would say bills. Correct? That's another way of like beta testing, that you give it freely to any user, n number of users, and test it. If people accept it, then go ahead and then later make revenues out of it. Now, validation of sales and marketing. So there are three different steps in that. One is pricing model. Then you validate your selling process, and then sales projection. These all things are important. Pricing, you have to select a pricing with more of I would say that's the most learned decision you have to make it, because pricing will affect in all the manners. There are different ways to do it, like benchmarking. There are like 10 products in the market with similar features or like a inferior feature also. You benchmark those pricing and keep a pricing accordingly. Then the second one is customer testing. You test with the customers that this price will work or not. That is done by surveys and all. And another one is penetrative pricing. You want to penetrate the market. I gave the example of Reliance. That was a penetrative pricing, like 500 rupees, take a phone, go away, and let's see. And people will come for they'll become your customers for a long time. That's how penetrative pricing comes into picture. So basis this, you define the pricing. I'll show you the typical BC, like business case, what we prepare and how we determine the pricing and all. The second one is selling process. First, the method and cost of lead generation. if in any selling process, you have to generate the leads, correct? Where you want to sell and how people is going to come to buy your product. So what is the method of lead generation and the cost of lead generation? Correct. There are different societies. People go into those societies. They advertise their products. So that is the cost of lead generation. Correct. Then second one is prospect conversion rate. Then those leads are being converted into actual customers. Conversion lead times. Sometimes the lead times are more. And these all things you have to evaluate, and then finally you get into the sales and then target market segment for each target market. Sales forecast, you have to do it for 2-3 years. What do you think as a product life cycle? And then you get into the market. These all are sales forecast. And that is being done with a lot of, I would say, experience, market study, and all those stuffs. And finally, it is market testing. Once you sell your product in the market, you have to keep on monitoring your sales. You keep on improving your product with respect to the market demand, and then establish the reference customers also, that these are my customers, and we need to continuously tap them and sustain our sales. Then keep on reviewing the sales and marketing plan based on the market requirement, and then finally sustain it with respect to the initial sales. There is a case study on that, which is a fentanyl buccal tablet, which is typical a marketing case study. Like, if we have time, we can take it up. Otherwise, I want to go to a typical business case, which will give you what we do. I'll share these slides to you to have a feel of this case study also. And the same way, like, this is a case study of a dosage form of fentanyl citrate, and a company want to check whether their product, which is a buccal tablet, there are different dosage forms. When I say dosage form, there are tablets, there are capsules, there are injections, there are tablet also. There are 2-3 different. One you swallow, one you stick it to your buccal cavity, one you keep it below your tongue, which is sublingual tablet. So there are different dosage forms. There are lozenges like Vicks, correct? So fentanyl exists in 3 dosage forms. One is sublingual, one is buccal, one is injection. So based on those dosage forms, a company wanted to check whether buccal tablet will be acceptable in the market or not. This is a big case study. Do you want me to discuss, or if there is a time constraint, we can stop here? I can send these slides to everybody, and you can go through that.
Sure. I believe that if you send us via these presentation, that will be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll stop here, and this is what they have done is they have done a lot of market surveys. They went to I'll just briefly go through that. They went to oncologists, they went to anesthesiologists, they went to nurses, and identified that what are the gaps and who uses this fentanyl citrate dosage forms, and how it is used, who prescribes it most, and who maintains that prescription for a long period of time for a cancer patients. So those all studies were done, and they finally found that, I'll go to the conclusion slide, that the oncologist mostly prescribe that, and the nurses generally maintains that therapy. So they came to a conclusion that they have to aware the patients as well as the prescriber to stick to their therapies through what they did is they created a lot of patient awareness programs, and as well as for the nurses as well as oncologists, and they told everybody that you have to stick to this, and this buccal tablets are having more advantages than the lozenges as well as the sublingual tablets. And finally they came to the conclusion that if we create those, if we provide seminars and presentations to the patients as well as the users, or sorry, nurses and oncologists, then this buccal tablets will be a more hit as compared to the other dosage forms already there in the market. And they finally launched it also. This is all captured in this these slides. I'll share it with Dr. Hemant, and probably he can circulate it. Thanks from my side. If you have any questions, you can.
Wow. That was a great information for all of us. I believe I, along with all the ladies and gentlemen in the participant list, got to learn a lot today. Really, that was really informative yet interesting too. The way you portrayed your experiences with us, especially using the real life examples, like of the brands like Mankind, Hyundai, Apple, and this detailed case about the paracetamol too. That was really wonderful. With no more further ado, we'll move to the QA round. I believe there are some questions in the chat box. I'll be reading sir one after the other, and you answer that.
Market value of product.
First question is, how can we know that which market is best for us?
Okay. See, as I said, that it depends on your product or your idea. Suppose I have an experience in pharmaceuticals, correct? So I can give you one example for that. A very, very common example. Suppose recently, if you know that yesterday or day before yesterday, Glenmark has launched a nasal spray for COVID-19. What they do is, what that spray does is, it's having nitric oxide in that, which kills the or neutralizes the viruses in the nasal cavity itself. So what is their value proposition is, they say that once you spray that into your nasal cavity and go out without even mask, they prefer it as a to wear mask. But even if you don't have mask and virus enters your nasal cavity, it kills it with the generation of nitric oxide, and that nitric oxide being released with one spray for 4 hours. That's their value proposition, correct? They have launched it in Indian market. See, how to identify that target market? That kind of spray, if you launch in US, correct? What happens? People are having a lot of awareness with respect to each and every product, their side effects, and you have to explain each and everything when you prescribe it also. Whereas in India, what happens? This is going to be an OTC product. Everybody is panicked towards COVID-19. What they do is they buy the product, they use it without even prescription, because it is going to be although it is it is having nitric oxide, having direct effect on the hearts, correct? Heart of people. Still, it is going to be an OTC product in India. So if you ask about a market, and if you think about only profits, which will be the bigger market, I would say go for India, because what is happening is people will pick like anything, spray it, go into the market. But when you go to US or any other educated or advanced countries, wherein doctor is having a duty to tell each and everything, or a pharmacist is having a duty to tell each and everything to the patient, listening that 70% of the people won't take that spray. This is how you have to work, where your product fits well. That is the thing. I'll give one more example. You know that people have taken this anti-worming agent, which is, I forgot, I forgot that name, but anti-worming agent tablet, everybody was taking during the COVID-19 treatment, and that doesn't even was having a single % effect. That can happen in India only. So I'm not saying that India is poor in terms of that, but the enforcement of laws, enforcement of regulations are very less. So it all depends on where your product will be a hit. That should be your market. So for that, you have to do a lot of market research, and basis that you have to identify.
All right. The next question is asked by Mr. Majid Mr. How can we attract more investors as a startup? What techniques should we use to make our startup successful?
I would say, have you seen the Shark Tank? So see, I'll tell you a few things about it. Shark Tank was more or less a scripted one or something like that. But what actually happens is every investor or every financer sees your value proposition to the product, and he sees it. He generally have a look at your product or your idea from a different perspective always. And his perspective, first perspective would be to make profit out of it, because whoever invests want money back with lot of profits, correct? See, so for that, what you have to do is you have to highlight your product in a manner that you have a novelty in that. When I say novelty, when you have seen the Shark Tank, listen, Piyush Bansal, he was always trying to look at the product wherein there was some problem was solved with respect to customer, correct? When you solve some problem, the acceptability of the product becomes more. When the acceptability is more, your market avenues are more. If your market avenues are more, that means your product is going to be big, correct? And if you are further adding some value proposition to it, it becomes a blockbuster. If that thing is identified by the investor, you'll definitely get the money out of it. Definitely.
That's perfectly right. And yes, Shark Tank is on everybody's mind these days. The next question is asked by Mr. Anmol Kakar. For startups, it is difficult to gain capital for international market. How can we gain that amount?
See, when we talk about like international markets, I know that this looks tough, but it's not that tough what we think about it, correct? So what happens when you have, see, as I said, when you have a good product in hand, you get a lot of investors for marketing that product in international market. And if I say that nasal product which Glenmark has launched in India is from a small Canadian company who has done research in Israel, correct? And that product was developed by one research lab, purchased by one Canadian company. Research was done in Israel, launched in few smaller countries, and identified by Glenmark, because India is a country wherein it can be sold as an OTC, correct? This is how it happens. So your product should have some value proposition. If you have value proposition, you get investors. And if you get investors, you can get into any market of your interest. Second part is, as I said, you first give that product to somebody to check, correct? And if you get a better feedback, and that feedback goes to a lot of people, because nowadays media is too like it's everywhere, correct? If you put it on WhatsApp or on TikTok or on Instagram or on Twitter or anywhere, and if you get a lot of feedbacks with respect to your product becomes famous. And once it is there, you get a lot of investments for that product. That's how you can enter the international markets. And I know that it's hard to think about it first, but when you have a product, you can get it.
The next question is by Mr. Dinesh Kumar. There are the two parts. One is, what's the role of lean methodology in market validation?
I need to get into that. I can't at this moment. I can't answer that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Whether this SWOT analysis need to be exercised along the market validation?
Yes, definitely. See, SWOT analysis is always beneficial, correct? You have to do a SWOT analysis for anything what you do, correct? SWOT analysis is a very basic thing which you need to do for any action what you are doing, and that will always be beneficial in addition to market validation. Yes, that's for sure. You have to do it.
So the next question is, sir, if a company is working well in one market, isn't working well in one market, is it a good decision to change your domestic market to the other nations or abroad?
Yes, that can be done, but with proper market research. Why? See, there are two things. Why there is a failure in this market? First, you have to study that. Then only the switching a market is a good decision, because you are a failure in this market, which is your domestic market, and you have a presence in that. You have muscle strength here. Then getting into another market should not be without proper research of your failures first. First, you research why you are a failure in this market. Do some analysis. If this is specifically because of market or the population here or your market target population here, then you have to change your market. Otherwise, you'll find the reason, whether it is a product or your marketing strategy or your pricing or there may be hundreds of reasons of failure, correct? If it is only market specific, then you should switch the market.
Definitely. The last question is, do you think that network marketing is good?
Which one? Sorry, can you repeat it?
Do you think that network marketing is good?
See, every aspect of marketing is good, provided you are making money out of it. Simple, as simple as that from business terms, correct? For each and every product, there is a specific market way of marketing, correct? When you see OTC, D2C is a direct marketing platform which everybody is adopting nowadays. But D2C needs a lot of investment with respect to advertising, with respect to social media advertising. So you have to select a particular marketing platform based on your muscle strengths, how much you want to invest in that, what is your product characteristics, correct? If you talk about pharmaceuticals, you can't go into D2C, correct? Directly, you can go into D2C nowadays, 1mg and all those stuffs are there. But D2C is a secondary market network for me. When I talk about pharmaceuticals, it is like from doctors through pharmacy and then through patients. It's a different market channel which goes. But for products like OTC, we can go directly to D2C marketing or different ways of marketing. Yeah.
That's it.